one event that made an impact on me, and I can still remember from third grade, sitting on a linoleum floor in our kind of gym, watching the first flight of Alan Shepard. But never during that time thought I'd ever have a chance to actually fly to space. I was looking at good schools. The things the Air Force did seemed pretty interesting, but I didn't understand them fully. But I understood that you could get a great education. The caliber of students and faculty was impressive as I was looking around for places to apply to. The easy part at the Air Force Academy was integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. Because that's basically what my parents laid out for me as I was growing up, and studied hard and kind of worked hard during that era, because that's the role models that I had. I did try to take advantage of the opportunities afforded by the Air Force Academy. And so I had a double major in math and physics, and I ended up graduating, I think, with 207 semester hours. But so it was sort of self-imposed, some of the additional classwork. But it was an opportunity I thought that you just had to take advantage of it. Time management was one of those aspects that, as many things as one was expected to do, you needed to develop that in terms of time management. The other was simply teamwork. I'd experienced a little bit of that in sports, but it got amplified at the Air Force Academy, and some accomplishments were done by the team, and building a team was foundational to that. I was afforded the opportunity in a co-op program to continue on for a master's degree right after the academy. And so for the next 3 quarters, the focus was getting the master's in physics and then on to pilot training. Wing commander could select some folks back as instructor pilots prior to the list going for assignments. And so I was assigned out of pilot training a T-37 as a first assignment IP. So went down to the instructor pilot training course at Randolph Air Force Base, and then back to Williams Air Force Base, and flew for the 3 years as an instructor pilot, as well as in the classroom. There weren't that many, as I understand it, people with advanced degrees in physics to fill some of the spots at the Air Force Academy, and so was asked to consider coming to the Air Force Academy and being in the physics faculty. But in that process, I actually went down to University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, UCCS, to pursue a PhD in electrical engineering. What I pursued, and again, nights and weekends as we went through the activity as a faculty member, and also flew the de Havilland Twin Otter, the UV-18, for the jump team during that time. For me, I wanted to do the flying and some of the research. I separated and went immediately into the reserves to fly C-130s at the unit at Peterson Air Force Base, and joined the faculty at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. I valued being in the reserves. I valued that service and would continue to do so for many years. And so I then began almost like a dual track from that point through the rest of my life, actually. I spent 8 years as a faculty member and going through the ranks and so forth. Moving along and talking to some of my classmates, actually, that were at NASA, they encouraged me to apply. Said, you know, you have some operational experience, you have a research kind of record, you should do it. And I did. And was very fortunate to have that work out. And so then I was at Air Force Space Command when this application to NASA was submitted. So I was a co-principal investigator for the Wake Shield facility and program manager. And it turned out it was ready about the same time I was ready for a flight assignment. And so they put me and the Wake Shield together on STS-60 in 1994. And the commander was Charlie Bolden. But I was the kind of the flight engineer for that, and I was also the arm operator. And so brought it out and put it into the payload bay on 4 separate occasions and so on. The first flight, you probably experience everything. And I had a chance to fly a second time, and you appreciate it more on the second flight because you kind of know what to look for, but you're experiencing things for the first time. Then I would be off to Star City, Russia, which was a completely unexpected venture here. And so we were preparing for our first astronaut to actually fly on the Soyuz to the Mir station. And the launch would be out of the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. And we went down to the launch, and it was wonderful. It worked just great, out of Kazakhstan. So the next flight ends up going to the Mir space station. And during that era, we were preparing for the International Space Station. So we were learning how to do longer duration flight and working with the Russians. And then back to the university, and my goal was to be back to the professor. Take a little bit of a breather there, but the request was to be the dean of the College of Engineering. I said yes to that as well, and off we went, and building a kind of a team, and was regional based to meet a need and to figure out what their needs were. A great experience, and during that time continued as a reservist, and would go to various positions at Air Force Space Command, various satellites as well as operations of them on orbit from Schriever. Great experience, and so great kind of operational experience, and leave Colorado Springs and go to Washington, D.C. to take on the role of Director of Defense Research and Engineering. And that's the Chief Technology Officer for the DoD. And it became really clear the purpose and why you're there on 9/11. So I was sworn in on October 14th of 2001 and was in the building on September 11th. But it was time to kind of get organized and see what we could do to help the cause. We focused on things that are going to be important for the Middle East, focused on things that are going to be important for the future, to include hypersonics. And so that comes in many ways from the foundation laid at the Air Force Academy on building teams, and the teamwork and time management, because we had an awful lot to do during that time. And so and working hard. The themes that were instilled at the Air Force Academy were absolutely alive and well during that era. So as the Undersecretary of the Air Force, I was also asked to do the role of the Executive Agent for Space. And so now the idea is of looking at building satellites, launching satellites, controlling satellites, was in a sense reasonably familiar, because I had some of those experiences. We were working with the administrator of NASA during that time, and director of the National Reconnaissance Office, and others during that DDR era that moved quite easily into the Undersecretary of the Air Force role. Also had the portfolio of the research and development and energy. And so we built a team for that, and made energy a consideration in all we did. And that team won the Presidential Award for Leadership in Energy Management for the U.S. government. There was interest in CSU to join there, and for a variety of reasons, ended up saying yes to that. And Ann and I and our 2 little boys at that point moved to Fort Collins, and built a systems engineering program. It was a new degree program, which had experience of doing that as the dean at UCCS, but it was in systems engineering. But it would be very, very helpful for our national security systems, as well as our economic security kinds of aspects. Those are the 2 drivers for me. I went from there to this role in the Army as the Chief Technology Officer for Army Futures Command. Been very positive, and one of the people that encouraged me to do that was Ryan McCarthy. He's now the Secretary of the Army, and he was Secretary Gates' assistant during the time I was Undersecretary of the Air Force. So he was sort of paying attention to what we were doing during that time, and the same kind of theme of trying to provide service using the foundation from the Air Force Academy. The academic has been part of that in terms of teaching and doing the research and technology. Has been part of the mix, but it's come in forms that I would never have dreamed of. The small town kid, blue collar kid from Ohio would never have dreamed that the opportunities would be available in his lifetime. Unimaginable from that perspective to what has occurred over this journey. Very surprised and deeply honored. A group of very special people that have been previously selected as distinguished graduates, and honored to be part of that group. The values one has in the Air Force and the Academy of integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do is very crucial, should never change. There are many things that must change in the 21st century. Our next generation of cadets are going to be leading a world that has a high rate of change that we've never really experienced before. And they're going to be up for the task with the Air Force Academy experience. Whether the nation calls on them for some sort of competition or conflict to be ready, but foundationally the Academy is crucially important. And I thank you.